Hello, my name is Jo Oborn and I work for FWAG Southwest. I've been working for FWAG for the last 17 years as a resource protection specialist in various catchments around the southwest where flooding, water quality, soil on roads and to a certain extent nutrients have been the underlying theme. The common denominator in these catchments has been degraded soils or poor structure, where the soils have ceased to function in their natural way. The importance of soils have now risen on the political agenda after having been overlooked for many years. A naturally functioning soil has many roles. It can act as a filter, filtering rainfall as it goes down to refill the aquifers, as a sponge to slow the movement of the water down through the catchment, a support for root growth and is used in the wider context for building on. The other function of the soil is as a carbon store. It also is a habitat containing millions of microbes which are crucial in the breakdown of organic matter and the recycling of nutrients for plant uptake. Earthworms are a very good indicator of soil health, moving crop debris through the soil profile and forming burrows which facilitate the mixing of air into the soil and infiltration. In an extensive survey that started in 2000, conducted by the Environment Agency, 3,500 soil pits were dug and found that 38% of the soils were so severely degraded that they were causing enhanced runoff, which will increase localised flooding. The increased intensity of agriculture has meant that soils are cultivated more often. There is less grass grown in arable rotations and the size of the machinery has increased, increasing the weight that the soil is having to bear. On top of this, we are facing changes in our rainfall patterns due to climate change. Although we are not experiencing increased annual rainfall, it's the intensity of the rainfall when it occurs together with degraded soils, which is causing a lot of concern about localised flooding and wider spread flooding as the soils are unable to function. Okay, soil, fascinating. What is it composed of? Most soils contain 45% minerals. They should contain 50% pore space and about 5% organic matter. This can vary with soil type and the state of the soils. So why are we concerned about soils and why are they in the state they are? Farming has changed, becoming more intensive. We've got increased stocking densities on livestock farms, we've got increased size of apparatus and often the number of cultivations, all creating a downward pressure on the soil, which will have the effect of reducing the pore space and increasing the overall packing density of the soil. Cultivations are often required to remediate soil damage, to increase the pore space and remove compacted layers. But in turn, cultivations will actually have the effect of breaking up these naturally formed aggregates, making them smaller, with the net effect of increasing the packing density of the soil. An analogy is, if you think of a loaf of bread, which has got all of that pore space in, and you are making breadcrumbs from it, if you put it in a food processor, the volume of that loaf of bread will become less when it's knocked around. Soils can vary immensely due to geographical location, the parent material and the way they were formed. Normally, before I go out to see a farmer, I will have a quick look at the properties of that soil using the soil survey data which was produced in the 1980s. There are various things that I look at. First of all, soil texture, which is the proportion of sand, silt and clay, where they are in the landscape and how they are affected by water and how water moves through them. This will give me a good understanding at the capability of that land for certain land uses and how they will respond to cultivations. Soil texture is determined by the proportion of sand. If you imagine that this is a sand particle blown up, a medium-sized sand particle, this is how big it is. Silt is about this size, and clay is much smaller, being about this size. So the proportion of these things will affect how well the soil can receive rainfall and how it will hold on to it. The ability of the soil to handle rainfall and to drain and move water within the catchment will vary with soil type, topography and parent material. In a landscape dominated by heavy soils, most of the movement of the water will be over land and fairly shallow, and within these landscapes the response of watercourses to rainfall will be very rapid and flooding can be a big issue. In landscapes with permeable bedrock and lighter soils, these should have the capacity to accept large volumes of rainfall and replenish the underlying aquifers. However, these soils tend to be of high agricultural value and have been intensively cultivated and worked for production, and all too often we're finding that these catchments are suffering from surface runoff with associated problems with soil loss, mud on the roads, blocked culverts and sediment in our watercourses. When we're investigating soil structural issues, the best time of year really is to do it during the winter period when the soils have been fully wetted by rainfall. The best tool, the trusted spade. When looking at fields which have got problems, or if we're doing soil husbandry visits with farmers, a tape measure is always handy so that we can record the location within the soil profile of soil damage. Cultivations to address that compacted layer need to be about 2 centimetres below the band of compaction to lift the soil and introduce vertical fissuring. We need to look at the soil throughout the cultivated profile and preferably below. Slamming the soil onto the ground helps to see how the soil is going to separate and what plane it's going to separate on. Ideally, we're looking for vertical fissures, and if you've got horizontal fissures, that is a classic sign of compaction. Methods of improving soil structural condition will vary with the degree and depth of compaction, soil type and cropping. Other short videos are available looking at soils managed under grassland and arable systems.